It wasn't easy, but I have perfectly predicted who is going to make the playoffs for this year's NFL season. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is here. This long, grueling offseason is finally behind us. We've got the first game of the season tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Caden Kubler, and welcome to Caden's Corner. I'm going to be perfectly predicting who I've got making it into the playoffs. It is absolutely brutal. You've got two new teams in each conference that, on average, make it in every single year. It's been a trend for 35 straight years. You've got four new teams in total that make it into the playoffs. I think two of the easier ones that a lot of people are predicting are the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC, and then obviously the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC. I think it's fair to say that both of those teams have a pretty good shot at making it into the postseason. But let's start here, ladies and gentlemen, in the NFC. This was ridiculously tough to predict. I was going back and forth looking at schedules for so many different teams, wondering who I'm going to have ultimately not making it, because you have 8 teams, in my opinion, that all should make the playoffs, that all could contend for a Super Bowl, and yet at the end of the day, one of them is going to miss it, and whoever misses it, I'm going to feel terrible that I left them out. But I left one team out, and I'll address them once we get to the end of this NFC predictions. At number 7, I have the Washington Commanders making it in as the last team in the NFC at number 7. This was a tough one for me here because I had them right on the edge, obviously. I believe that Jaden Daniels has put himself in the conversation to become a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And when you're splitting hairs with other teams, it comes down to your head coach and your quarterback at the end of the day. And I believe that Jaden Daniels is tremendous. You look at the season they had last year. They get to the NFC Championship. They improve the team. The O-line's better. They added Deebo Samuel, of course, and they're in a great situation right now, just like the Niners were in with Brock Purdy. You know that you hit on your rookie quarterback. Daniels takes him to the NFC Championship. You have that luxury now of saying, okay, we've got a cheap contract at the quarterback spot. We don't have to shell out $50 to $60 million. Let's go all in and build around him to the best of our abilities. They just re-signed Terry McLaurin, which I thought was crucial if this team wanted to make it back to not only the NFC Championship, but if they wanted to make a Super Bowl run. They got it done. I love the Commanders making it into the postseason. I think they win about 12 games. If I'm being fully accurate, I think 12 or 11 is a very safe threshold. The Packers last year won 11 games and were the number 7 seed. So I think, the competition could be a little stiffer, but I think 11 or 12 wins for the Commanders is definitely in their wheelhouse. At number 6, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I've been very vocal about this team this offseason. I feel that the Rams are a squad that can go on a Super Bowl run. I think they're talented enough to go win it all, but they are in a really tough division that's significantly upgraded. The Niners are going to be all the way back. A lot of people are really excited to see what Seattle can do. I think a lot of people are high on the Cardinals as well, and the Niners have the easiest schedule in football. So I ultimately have the Niners winning the NFC West, but I think the Rams are such a talented football team. As long as they get into the playoffs, they can beat anyone, in my opinion. They gave Philly their toughest run for their money when they went on to win the Super Bowl last year. Nobody else did it. If Jalen Carter gets blocked up the middle, Matthew Stafford hits that throw and the Rams win that game. Cooper Kupp, they move on from him this offseason. He hadn't hit 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. He was super banged up on and off, so the Rams upgraded, going out and getting Devontae Adams to pair up with Puka Nacua, and you could argue that this is the top tandem of receivers in football. I expect this front 7 to take another step. You have Jared Verse, who's a DPOY contender. Obviously, Braden Fisk was the runner-up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year, so I think this Rams team is absolutely a Super Bowl contender. With our final wild card spot here, I have the Green Bay Packers. Of course, they made the stunning trade last week to go out and get Micah Parsons. They traded Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks, and they made Micah Parsons the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. I originally didn't have the Packers making the postseason. I was going back and forth. I felt like, okay, they won 11 games last year. They add Matthew Golden. Jordan Love's finally healthy. I think they can get into the postseason, but yet the competition was so stiff. Now I think getting Micah Parsons, this definitely puts them over the hump, and I believe they can go out and win the Super Bowl as well. I'm so fired up about this team. At the end of the day, it's all going to come down to Jordan Love. What can he do? I think the surgery on his left hand is going to be big to get him fully healthy for week 1. If he can stay healthy throughout the season, he's finally got his number one receiver. Josh Jacobs has emerged as such a staple of this offense. I think they can be really well versed. And of course, when you go out and get arguably the best defensive player in the league, that's going to help out a lot. So I have the Packers winning 12 games, just missing out on winning the NFC North, but ultimately making it into the postseason at 12-5. All right, let's hop into our division winners here. There are a few hot takes sprinkled in here, so everybody buckle up. This is where it gets fun. At number 4, winning the NFC North, without a doubt the toughest division in football, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Now that means two things. Yes, I do not have the Detroit Football Lions making the postseason. There are a few different things that came into this for me, and like I said, this is not an easy decision for me to make here. I had to go through every single one of these teams and look at, okay, what did they add this offseason? What did they lose this offseason? What does the schedule look like? And for the Lions, they're really the only team that I look across all these squads in the top 7. They're the only team that lost so much. And I understand they won 15 games last year. The defense was injured. They're going to get Hutchinson back. Of course, I can't gloss over that. But you lose Ben Johnson, who's maybe the most highly touted offensive mastermind that anyone has ever wanted at the head coaching spot in like the last 10 years. He made this offense go, and I think there might be a little bit of a rough transition. They also lose Aaron Glenn. You lose a few guys on that offensive line. I don't necessarily think they're going to be bad, but I think it's going to be so tough to make it into the playoffs that I could really see the only way them making it in is if, like, I don't know, Jalen Hurts gets hurt, or if the 49ers have another huge string of injuries, which could absolutely happen. I think the Lions will be competitive. I think they'll be knocking at the door, but I can't say for certainty that 11 wins gets you into the postseason this year. I have the Lions winning 10 games. The schedule is ridiculously tough. I don't think they're going to be a bad football team, and that's what I don't want to get misconstrued here. They're going to be good, but at the end of the day, it's going to be so tough for them to make it into the postseason. I don't have them making it in. On the other part of this equation, that does mean that I am super high on the Minnesota Vikings. I believe they're going to be a tremendous football team. I understand that not a lot of people are necessarily high on JJ McCarthy, and I'm super excited to see what he can do. I've taken the opposite approach with McCarthy. I think if you're dropping in, because he's basically a rookie, he didn't play at all last year. He tore his knee in the preseason. We didn't see him at all in his rookie season. So I still view him as a rookie. And if you're taking it from that mindset, I don't know if you could make a serious case that there's a team right now that you could just plop a rookie quarterback into that he's going to have more success in. In terms of a team built around him, I would say, yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles would definitely be up there. But I think in terms of a team that you can just put a quarterback into and have success, I think the Minnesota Vikings are perfect for that. You've got the best receiver in football, arguably, in Justin Jefferson. You've got a top 5 number 2 receiver in Jordan Addison. You just got Adam Thielen, who still has a lot of juice left, in my opinion. Yes, Addison's going to be out the first few games, but once you get him back, this receiving core is going to be tremendous. Hawkins is the top 5 tight end in the league. You've got a great offensive line. We can't gloss over the fact that Kevin O'Connell has had so much success with so many different quarterbacks, and he handpicked JJ McCarthy. On the other side, you've got a tremendous defense coached up by Brian Flores. It just seems like the Vikings have answers everywhere on this team except for the quarterback spot, and I've got to go out on a limb here and say I trust Kevin O'Connell so much so to say that this team won 14 games with Sam Darnold. I don't think they're going to take a huge step back, and I think they got better this offseason. I like the Minnesota Vikings to win 12 games, win the NFC North, and really shock a lot of people. I'm all in on the Vikings winning the NFC East here. By no surprise, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them also going 12-5. I think they can win 13 games. I think they're going to be really talented this year. By no surprise. I mean, I know everybody talks about a Super Bowl slump or a sophomore slump. Jaden Daniels isn't going to have that sophomore slump, and the Philadelphia Eagles aren't going to have the Super Bowl slump. They didn't lose anybody this offseason, anybody that's really going to make that big of an impact. They have so many young defensive linemen and so many young pieces, and Howie Roseman has just done such a tremendous job of drafting guys on this team, and that's the luxury for the Eagles when you're paying guys like Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, guys up front. You've got to be able to hit in the draft, and that's what they did when they hit on both of their rookie corners last year in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. You've got to be able to reload, and they've done that on the defensive side of the ball so well, especially on that D line. We're seeing it now in the secondary. They just keep hitting with these rookie contracts, and that's what's made this Eagles team so dangerous. They're not going to take a step back. I love the Eagles to get back to the postseason and make another deep run. All right, this is where it gets fun here, ladies and gentlemen. At number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South by no surprise. I like their schedule. I love the way everything's turning out for them. This was a team last year that made it into the postseason. They hosted a playoff game. Now, yes, they did lose in the first round, but you can look at this offense. Statistically, it was one of the best in all of football, and Mike Evans was banged up throughout the year. Chris Godwin breaks his leg and misses over half of the season. Now you're looking at it from the perspective like, okay, we've got Baker Mayfield, who is an unbelievable quarterback. You do lose Liam Cohen, who's your play caller, but this offense in terms of talent, you draft Emeka Egbuka in the first round, who's the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State. You get Mike Evans fully healthy. You get Chris Godwin fully healthy. It's like, okay, this passing attack can be one of the best in football. This might be the best receiving core in football, as a matter of fact. You got a dynamic 1-2 punch of running backs in the backfield with Bucky Irving and Rashad White. I just think that this offense can be the best in football. It wouldn't surprise me at all. They were top 5 in every single metric last year. Now you're adding all these pieces. You're getting healthy again. I just think everything's turning out for the Buccaneers to have a deadly offense, and I think they're going to steamroll the NFC South. They've won it for like 4 years in a row. I think this is going to be the 5th year in a row that they'll win it ultimately. I love the Bucs to shock a lot of people and win a lot of football games. All right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please. With the number 1 seed in the NFC, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I'm all in on this team. I've been all in on them all off season. They have a few things working for them that make me really confident about this team not only getting the number 1 seed, but making it into the postseason. You know that we get 2 new teams every single year. As of right now, I only have 1 team in the NFC because it's so competitive, and I think that might be the outlier. San Francisco, in terms of the odds that Vegas has set, has the second best odds to make it into the playoffs in the NFC. So I think we can pretty much check that off, that it's like, okay, if they're healthy, they're going to make it into the playoffs. Now they have the easiest schedule in football. The schedule is ridiculously easy. Outside of playing the Rams twice, the Seahawks twice, and the Cardinals twice, they don't play anybody good virtually all season long. I think this is going to be huge for the Niners. They have a late bye week to get healthy. They can absolutely win 14 games, in my opinion. You still have a super talented offensive roster. You paid Brock Purdy this offseason. You re-extended George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey's healthy. You're going to get Ayuk back in a few weeks. You've still got Juwan Jennings. Ricky Pearsall started to turn it up in the second half of the year. And I really believe in the Niners draft. I believe in what they did defensively. I think that this is going to be a really good football team. And I believe that they were bad last year because of the injuries that they had. I'm not panicking on the Niners. I'm taking the exact opposite approach. I like them to win the most games in the NFC and make it back to the postseason with a little bit of home field advantage. All right, let's get to the AFC standings here. This is another really tough conference to predict overall. I only had 1 new team making it from the NFC. So that means in total, I'm only going to have 3 new teams making it. And over the last 35 years, it's been 4 new teams every single year at the bare minimum. I've got 1 team that I'm leaving off that we'll get to that people are not going to be happy with me about. At number 7, I have the Miami Dolphins. This is my hottest take, in my opinion, throughout the entire postseason. You've got to throw in some new postseason teams. Look at a few things here. 2 out of the last 3 years, the Miami Dolphins have made the postseason. In that 1 year they didn't make it, which, newsflash, it was last year, Tua Tagovailoa was extremely banged up. They didn't have Bradley Chubb for the entirety of the year. No Jalen Phillips. Your 3 arguably most impactful players did not play last year, and they still won 8 games and nearly got into the playoffs. They were only 2 games away. Now you flip the script and say, okay, the last time we saw a fully healthy Tua Tagovailoa, they led the offense in virtually every single stat: passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, points per game. This team can dominate you offensively. Now, can they beat the great teams on the road? Can they beat the playoff contenders? Can they go on the road in cold weather games? We all understand these are question marks that we're asking about the Miami Dolphins. At the end of the day, 10 games with this schedule seems totally attainable. I think they can sweep the Jets. I think they can split against the Patriots. They can maybe split against the Bills, and you can rattle off 5 or 6 more wins in that schedule, in my opinion. You can get to 10 wins with the Miami Dolphins. I just think they're going to be so dominant offensively that it's going to carry this squad back into the postseason. I think last year was an outlier. I've got to trust Mike McDaniel that he is a great coach. 2 out of the last 3 years they've been in the postseason. They've been a good football team. Last year, they were so injured. I understand the secondary's not great, but I like Miami to shock a lot of people and get into the postseason. At number 6, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, they won 11 games, and they just didn't do anything fancy offensively, in my opinion. They were just a ground and pound team. Lad McConkey, quietly got 1,000 yards. He was awesome last year. I think the receiving core is better with Keenan Allen, with Trey Harris. The running back room is a lot better now with Omari and Hampton, with Najee Harris. They're a lot better offensively, and this is still going to be a tremendous defense, in my opinion. It wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers really gave the Chiefs a legit run for their money at winning this division. We're going to have a great game in week 1 in Brazil between those two tomorrow night, but I like the Chargers to get into the postseason and ultimately win 11 games again. At number 5, our second new team that we did not see last year. By no surprise, I have the Cincinnati Bengals making their postseason return. You can't hold this team down for too long. I looked at the season last year that they had. They went 9-8. This offense was so good in the back half of the year. They now don't have those holdouts in the beginning of the year, so I think they can start faster. That's been the thorn in the Bengals' side over the last few years. It's been like they can't start hot. If they just start hot or start lukewarm, they're going to win games. The defense is still a question mark, but the defense had them in a few games, and then it was like McPherson would miss some kicks. McPherson cost them like 3 games where he missed kicks, and they won 9 games last year. If the defense is just a little bit better, if they start faster, you can see a way where the Bengals win 13, 12 games in a really tough NFC North. I think they're going to be a really good football team. I like them to get back to the postseason. And yes, that does mean that I do not have the Denver Broncos making the playoffs. This is another really tough one for me here, and I could absolutely see them making it. I think they're going to win 10 games. I could see them winning 11 games. I could see them making it into the playoffs. By no surprise, they may have the best defense in football, but I don't know what they're going to look like offensively. Cortland Sutton's great, and I think you're going to see a step from Troy Franklin, and you got RJ Harvey, but I don't know if their offense is good enough to contend with some of these juggernauts in the AFC, and I've got to go out on a limb and say they're not going to make it. But like I said, when I was going over the NFC, one injury can propel you into the postseason. The Broncos will be right there. I could totally see them making the playoffs. I had to throw in a hot take. All right, let's go to our division winners here. Winning the AFC South, I have the Houston Texans. By no surprise, I think that this team is without a doubt a Super Bowl contender. I am all in on the Houston Texans. I think CJ Stroud is one of the premier elite quarterbacks in our league, and I think you can make a serious case that he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. So many people slandered his name after the statistical season last year was down. If you just want to be like a box score watcher and just look at the stats, then yeah, you could say CJ Stroud had a bad year. But if you actually look at what happened, having one of the worst O-lines in football, having every single receiver get injured, you would understand, okay, CJ Stroud is like insanely good because he won this division for the second year in a row and won another playoff game. You'd be like, okay, that's some like elite company that CJ Stroud is putting himself into already. He's one of only 6 quarterbacks in NFL history that have won a playoff start in each of their first 2 seasons. That's the greatness of CJ Stroud that we're already seeing here. In 2 years of him playing in the NFL, I think this defense is going to be one of the best in the league. I love what DeMeco Ryans has done on that end. You've now got a good offensive line that did a really good job of addressing that this offseason. I believe in the receiving core, even though they lost Diggs. I think this Texans team is going to be really good. CJ Stroud is going to have a massive year. Do not sleep on this Texans squad. All right, at number 3 here, winning the AFC North. This is going to be a brutal division, but I have the Baltimore Ravens winning it again. I think Baltimore is just so stacked. Lamar is going to have so much revenge on his mind. This is going to be a brutal year for the league. I think Lamar is going to be, he's going to go scorched earth on the league, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. I could see them winning the Super Bowl this year. I could see everything being in front of this Ravens team. Lamar right now, in my opinion, the way I'm looking at him, like, okay, all he's done is win. He's struggled in the postseason a little bit, but in the regular season, since he was drafted, all he's done is win. His wins stack up with some of the best of them in the first few years in the league. He has 2 MVPs. Statistically, he's been unbelievable. It's like, okay, if Lamar Jackson wins a Super Bowl, you could easily say he's a top 10 quarterback of all time. That's the area and range we're approaching with Lamar Jackson. We're approaching some scary territory with Lamar. Everything's still in front of this team. He could go win the MVP this year. He could go win the Super Bowl MVP this year. I believe that he can do it, and I believe that Lamar is going to come into this season with so much vengeance on his mind. Do not sleep on this Ravens squad. Let's not take him for granted either. All right, number 2 here, I have the Buffalo Bills winning 13 games, just coming up short of making the number 1 seed in the AFC. It's so critical to, of course, get home field advantage in the AFC. But when you've got to get the number 1 seed and when you've got to go through Kansas City, you can just say night-night because you're not going to do it. And that's the way I feel this year. I like Buffalo to win 13 games. I think they're going to be great. I think this Bills team's a lot more talented than they were last year. I love the addition of Josh Palmer. They just brought back Gabe Davis. I think Keon Coleman's going to take another big step in year 2. And of course, you got Khalil Shakir. They re-signed James Cook. This team's got good pieces offensively now. And I think Josh Allen is in position to have another big year. Could totally see him winning the MVP again. That was such a great season he had last year. He totally deserved the MVP. I hate the whole, oh, Lamar deserved it. Lamar did deserve it, but Josh Allen deserved it more. That's just the reality of the situation. But I believe this Buffalo team will win 13 games. They're going to be great. Ladies and gentlemen, by no surprise, I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning 14 games, getting the number 1 seed in the AFC. And I don't think anyone stops this team. You're put in such a tough spot when you've got to go through Arrowhead to try and win the Super Bowl, when you've got to go through number 15, when in reality, Josh Allen's never been able to do it. Lamar Jackson's never been able to do it. Stroud, Herbert, you name it. They've never been able to do it. The only guy that's been able to do it is Joe Burrow. And I just don't know if that defense is good enough to hold up against Mahomes and company when you've got to go on the road in Arrowhead. That's the reality of the situation. Nobody wants to go on the road. And if Mahomes has to go on the road, I still believe that they're going to win the Super Bowl. I've been all in on this team making the Super Bowl since they lost to the Eagles. I'm like, okay, it's going to be bad for the NFL next year because they got embarrassed. And I just, the last time they got embarrassed, Mahomes bounces back and nearly three-peated. Like, that's what we're looking at right now. That's the barrel we're staring down right now with the greatness of the Kansas City Chiefs. You not only have that, you have the last dance of Travis Kelce. You have an improved receiving core. Once Rashi gets back, it's like you have him, who didn't play at all last year because of the injuries. He played a little bit, but you've got Xavier Worthy, who played his best game in the Super Bowl, who's now coming back. You've got, of course, Hollywood Brown, who didn't play in the regular season and really started to build that connection with Mahomes in the postseason. I just think that this team's going to be so much better offensively, and everybody's talking about how the Broncos are going to try and win this division or how the Chargers are going to win this division. They said the same thing during the Brady dynasty. Let's pump the brakes. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and I believe that they're going to win the Super Bowl. My official MVP pick is Joe Burrow. I think that Burrow is going to have an unbelievable year. He's going to be sensational. I just don't see how anyone stops this offense. He led nearly every single category last year. He had the most passing yards in the league. He had the most touchdowns. He was like top 3 in completion percentage. And I feel that if the Bengals win 1 or 2 more games, if McPherson knocks down a few kicks, that's Burrow's MVP to lose at that point. I think Burrow is the front runner to win the award. In my opinion, he's going to win the award, and I really like Burrow to win the MVP. But ladies and gentlemen, football is all the way back. The best time of the year is here. Let me know down below which playoff predictions you disagree with me about, what you agree with me with. I'm curious to see who you guys got making the postseason. Let me know your 4 new playoff teams that you guys have making the playoffs. I'm Caden Kubler, and thank you guys for watching.